All right, guys, just wanted to work through a few problems on this review. Again, there's a lot of problems here, but I wanted to make sure that we had a good handle on this before we take our first test. So I'm actually going to give you a couple of days to do this review, so you won't have an assignment for Friday, but this one, I would expect that you would have this turned in by the end of the day Friday. What will happen is next Tuesday, because we've got a holiday weekend this weekend, next Tuesday, I will probably do a Google Meet of some sort. That way you can go over any of these, or if you've got any questions, you can submit those questions, and then we'll probably test on Wednesday. It'll give you plenty of time to review and make sure that you know what you're doing before we have our first test. Again, I don't want you to start out with a bad grade. So first, let's look at this first category. It says write each as an algebraic expression. So looking at number one, it says the quotient of D and 2. So as soon as we see that word quotient, we know that it is a division problem. There are several different ways you could write that. But the real key is right here where it says the quotient of D and 2. So that tells me that I'm going to take D and be dividing 2. So this always becomes, it would be my numerator if I'm writing it as a fraction. So in other words, you could write it as D divided by 2 because a fraction is nothing more than a division problem. You could also write this as D divided by 2 like that. So either one of those would be acceptable. And just so you know, this test is going to be multiple choice, so you just have to choose the right answer. So you're not going to have to actually write anything in, you just choose the right answer. So as long as you can figure out which one of these two choices would be the right one on the test, then you'll be fine. Let's look at number 4 as well, because this has been a point of confusion. It says 11 more than n. So when you see this more than like that, then that tells you that this needs to go to the end, okay? So more than indicates addition. So the way we would actually write this is n plus 11. Now, because of the commutative property, that could also be 11 plus n, and it would still be true. Because, for example, let's say I put 1 in for n. Just put the number 1. So 1 plus 11 equals 12, and 11 plus 1 still equals 12. So I still get the same answer. So it doesn't matter as much with addition, but when you're talking about subtraction, then it really does matter. Let me give you an example. So if we had something that said 4 less than x, then it makes a huge difference the way we write that. Again, when we see less than, we've got to know that this 4 needs to go to the end, okay? So this would actually need to be written as x minus 4, not 4 minus x. Let me show you why that makes a difference. If I put in a positive 1 right here for x, positive 1 minus 4 equals negative 4, or negative 3, sorry. If I take 4 minus 1, it equals a positive 3. So those are two totally different answers, okay? So the correct version of this is x minus 4 right here, not this one, okay? If you see 4 less than x, then it needs to be written like that right there. Okay, let's go down to the next section. It says write each as a verbal expression. Again, don't make this complicated on yourself. A lot of you were trying to come up with the product of this times that. Just write it the way you would normally say it. I mean, me and my simple self, I would say that this just looks like n times 8, and that's fine. You could say n being multiplied by 8. You can come up with as fancy as things as you want to. But as long as, again, on the test that you can pick out this phrase that goes along with this algebraic expression, then you're going to be fine. I don't want to spend a lot of time on those. Here, you're being asked to evaluate each expression. So as long as you know what kind of operation that you're dealing with, then you're going to be fine. Here it says the product of 7 and 8. So we should know by now that a product is a multiplication problem. So really what I have is 7 times 8, which equals 56. Okay, again, here's this less than part. So it's asking us to evaluate this 16 less than 19. Good example right here. So if I see less than, I know that I'm going to move this 16 over here to this side, and less than we know is subtraction. So my actual problem I'm going to have is 19 minus 16, which just happens to equal 3. All right, let's move down to the next section. Evaluate each expression utilizing the order of operations. And just so you remember the order of operations is please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Probably seen that since, I don't know, second or third grade. But make sure you understand what that actually means. That means we would start with parentheses, we would move to exponents, then multiplication or division. These are on the same level, and either addition or subtraction. And you always move from left to right, okay? So looking at this problem, looking from left to right, I have multiplication right here. So what I would do first is I would do that multiplication. So 6 times 6 is 36, minus 3. I'm just going to carry my work right down. And then all of a sudden, 36 minus 3 equals 33. All right, let's go to one maybe a little bit more difficult. So let's go down to number 19. Here we have all of this stuff in parentheses, okay? So I know I need to start with parentheses, but again, I'm looking from left to right, and I see if I have any multiplication or division or any addition or subtraction. So you notice right here I have addition, no multiplication or division yet inside these parentheses. So I want to do this part first, 3 plus 5, which would equal 8. And I'm just going to carry my parentheses right down with me, keep my work flowing downhill, so to speak. And then I'm going to go ahead and do my parentheses again. 8 minus 2 would equal 6. Now I'm done with my parentheses because I've resolved them. So now I have 6 divided by 3 is the only thing I have left. And 6 divided by 3 equals 2. All right, so let's move to the second part of this sheet. It says simplify each expression by combining like terms and or using the distributive property. So again, like terms, it can only be like terms if it's the same variable raised to the same power. So I've got negative 4x minus 9x. Again, when I've got a negative and a negative, you've been taught, I know, a lot to keep, change. So I'm going to keep the negative 4x. I'm going to change this to addition, and I'm going to change this to a negative 9x. So really what I have now as a problem is negative 4x minus 9x, okay? And when I'm adding integers that are both negative, I'm going to end up with a negative answer. So negative 4 plus a negative 9 is going to equal a negative 13, and my x just kind of comes along for the ride. All right, one of the things that may confuse you is when you see something like this. The multiplication is over here on this side. Well, it doesn't really matter. Again, multiplication is commutative, so it could be on this side or on that side. It doesn't matter. It still means the same thing. Here's what I mean by that. This could also just as easily be written as 9 times 2a plus 8. Okay? It's exactly the same thing. So when you see this, when you see one number that's being multiplied times a binomial, this is called a binomial where you have two terms, just like a bicycle has two tires. So when you see that, you need to distribute this 9 or multiply this 9 through every term. So here's what we end up with. 9 times 2 equals 18. The a just kind of comes along for the ride. And then we have 9 times positive 8. Well, 9 times positive 8 is 72. So our final answer here is 18a plus 72. We're not going to come up with one distinct answer. And what I mean by that is we're not going to come up with one numerical value like 4, for example. You're going to come up with an expression. Again, the instructions here is to simplify each expression. Okay? Let's go down maybe to one more. Then I really want to spend time down here at the bottom. So let's look at number 29. And again, we see that we have multiplication times a binomial. So we know that this needs to be multiplied by both parts. It needs to be distributed. And we'll just kind of leave this negative 8, 9 hanging out here just a minute, okay? So 10 times n is just simply going to be 10n. 10 times a negative 5 is going to equal a negative 50. And then this is just going to kind of come along for the ride as well. So minus 8n. So now let's look for like terms. Again, like terms have to have the same variable raised to the same exponent. So you notice I have a 10n right here and I have a negative 8n right here. If I take 10 minus 8, what does that give me? 10 minus 8 is 2. and the n just kind of comes along for the ride. So 2n, 10n minus 8n would be 2n, and then the subtract 50 just kind of comes along too. And now I don't have any more like terms that I can combine, so this would be my final answer. All right, let's move on to evaluating because a lot of people had issues with this. So I want to work through a couple examples of this if I can. So let's look at number 33. That is a z, by the way, it's kind of hard to see. Zx is divided by 5. Okay, anytime you've got two variables right side by side, then you know that there's a multiplication there. So really I've got z times x divided by 5 is what I really have as a problem. And very simply, what this is telling me I need to do is everywhere I see an x, I need to put in a 5 because x equals 5. And everywhere there's a z, I should also put in a 5 because z equals 5. So we're just going to rewrite this problem that I wrote up here again. This time we're going to put the numbers in. So here we have z. We know that z equals 5. So I'm going to start out with 5 times, it tells me that x, my next variable in this equation, x equals 5. So I'm going to do 5. And then I know that the rest of my problem is divided by 5. Boy, that's a lot of 5s, ain't it? But again, I'm doing the same process again over and over and over. So from left to right, I'm looking for, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, what I should do first. I don't see any parentheses. I don't see any exponents. I do, however, see multiplication right here. So 5 times 5 is 25. And then I'm going to just simply bring down my divided 5. So 25 divided by 5 is all I have left. And that will have an answer of 5. So these will have a numerical answer that you're going to come to, okay? And the way you're going to get to that numerical answer is by putting in the value of the variables that have been given to you. Let's work through one more of these. Let's go to number 37. It's got zx plus x minus z. Again, what does it mean when you have two variables right side by side? It means multiplication. So really I have z times x. I put a little line through those so you know it's not a 2. Plus x minus z. And again, it tells me I'm going to use x equals 4 and z equals 3. So everywhere I see those letters or variables, I'm going to put in those numerical values. So let's start at the beginning. Z equals 3. So I'm going to put a 3 right there. Just bring down my sign, which is multiplication. X equals 4. So I'm going to put that there under x. Plus x, which again is 4, minus z, which again it tells me is 3. Now again, I want you to really pay attention to what you should do first. And just like we read, we're going to start from left to right, and we're looking for our order of operations. So no parentheses, no exponents, but I do see multiplication right here. So 3 times 4, I'm just going to bring my work over this way. 3 times 4 would be 12. And I'm just going to carry the rest of this part over because this is what I actually just answered. 12 plus 4 minus 3. Now again, I'm working from left to right, and I want to do the first thing that I see, either addition or subtraction. I've got 12 plus 4, which equals 16, minus 3. So my final answer, 16 minus 3, would be 13. Hopefully this has helped you guys. If you have additional questions, please ask them before Friday afternoon because I want to make sure you get this turned in so that we can really take a look at it. And then again, probably next Tuesday, we will really look at this and do some kind of Google Meet or something and answer any questions that you have. All right? So hopefully, again, this has helped. Feel free to give us a comment if you have any issues or struggles. Thanks.